Well, hello there, YouTube. My name is Tony, and this is TonyLiveTV. This last week, or 2 weeks now, since my last video, as you guys know, I was headed off to California. And when I got to California, I met Mark. That's right, from Sun Valley Mercedes Transmissions. And he gave me a tour through the shop. I just have a few pictures is all. I was hoping to give you guys a video and, you know, like an interview with Mark, and so you can get to know him, get to know his shop. But he's in the middle of a move right now, and he invited me back at a later date to go ahead and do that. But he let me take a few pictures. He says, you know, excuse the place right now because he is in the middle of a move. But I had a lot of fun out there. Mark and I actually have a lot in common. We love music, and our playlist consists pretty much of Hendrix and Led Zeppelin. That's it. That's all that I have on my playlist. I'm not sure all what he has, but at least we have that in common. We used to go to the same beaches and everything. Yes, I grew up in California. So Mark and I actually hit it off quite well, I think. Unfortunately, my trip to California, it was unbelievable. If anybody's ever driven in LA traffic, it took me about 9 hours to get there, and it should have taken 6. And here's the funny part. When I was leaving, I left in the afternoon, and all I was going to is a place called Indio, California. Here's a map and the distance of where Indio is from Sun Valley Mercedes Transmissions. Well, that took me 6.5 hours to do. And I left before rush hour traffic. So I left like at 2 o'clock or something. I got there at 8:30. I did spend the day with Mark, and you know, this is a transmission that they're working on, for example. I just took a picture of it. I think this is a pretty complex one. I think this might be like from a 280 or something. I really don't remember, you know, I'm old, so I can't remember. But here's like 2 different stages. For example, you know, you have your tear down, you have your junk parts, and your cleaner, and then you start assembling it. Now that's one of the assembly tables. You know, I saw the guys out there working out there. One of the guys has worked there for like 30 years. You know, Mark's been actually doing this longer than 30 years. You know, he started out with Mercedes dismantling. And that was, I won't call it a junkyard, but I'll call it a salvage yard. And his biggest call was transmissions. And so that called to him later, right? So he's been doing this for over 30 years. And they rebuilt it, and like I said, a couple of these guys have worked with him all that time. There's even an apprentice in there right now, a young guy, and I saw the older guys, you know, the guys have been there for a while. They're walking over there and they're showing them their skills. And I am so impressed with that because you guys know that this is a dying trade. You know, transmissions, I think, are going to be here for quite some time because that's about the transfer of power. It's nice to see a young guy in there eager to learn, because I had a moment away from Mark. He got an important phone call. So I stepped away and I just observed the shop. You know, I want to get a vibe. What kind of a vibe is here? You know, do these guys get along? Yeah, they get along. They do. And I can see that, you know, the apprentice, I mean, he's listening, you know, he's not like, he doesn't have an earbud in his ear, he's not dancing to tunes. You know, it's fine if everybody's listening to music, I'm not saying that, but you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, are you there because you need a job? Or are you there because you really have a passion, or you want to learn, or, you know, I mean, that's what this stuff is all about. But again, you know, I liked all those guys. I loved Mark. You know, I can't wait. Like I said, I'm not sure if I want to go back though, just because of the traffic alone. If I do, I'll probably fly. But I did want to take video. I did not take any video whatsoever. I just took these quick little shots just to show you guys what's going on. So there's that same thing as it's being assembled, and you can see it's almost assembled on the right-hand side. Even though this is an old shop and been there for years, you know, he's expanding and moving, and there's a lot going on. let's look at this for example. I was very impressed with this, and I'll tell you two reasons why I was impressed with this. Number one, it's handmade. Mark made this. And I looked up those welds, and those welds looked like a row of dimes laying there. And I should know a good quality weld. My father is a metallurgist. Basically, he taught at Cerritos College in California, as a matter of fact. I used to go to school with him at night, and so I learned how to weld, and as a matter of fact, I'm a certified welder. Yeah, I am actually a certified welder. I took the test and everything. I was in the Boilermakers Union. But let's get back to this. He did a beautiful job. Do you guys even know what this is? This is a dyno, a hand-built dyno. Now, in front of that flywheel there, or flex plate, whatever you want to call it, is a diesel engine. We all know diesel has a lot of torque. But if you don't have a load, what good is it, right? Well, that's a hydraulic, gosh, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but basically you fill it up with water and it produces a restriction. I'll call it a hydraulic brake. That's basically what it is, which I didn't ask him how many torques and all that. I wasn't interested in that. I was just interested in what the guy built, right? I like a guy that can build his own tools. You guys remember Tassos? Yeah, he built his own tools. So I was very impressed with this little machine. And what's the purpose of this machine? The purpose of this machine is he can simulate you driving on the road. So he's not sending out a transmission that he built on the bench and then having you install it and you find a leak. The idea behind this whole thing here is that he can find leaks. He can make sure that it's shifting at the proper points. He can make sure it can take the load, right? Basically, he is going through everything that you're going to go through after you install it. And that's basically driving it. But he's doing it on a bench. He can catch everything right here. Now, I'm not saying he's perfect. He's not infallible. Nobody is. But there's another thing I know about him. And that is he stands behind whatever he builds. I'm telling you, if you get a leak, give him a call. If it doesn't perform like you think it should be, give him a call. I saw it when I was there. How do you think he's been in business all these years? He don't advertise. Have you ever looked at his website? That's the first thing I said to Mark. I said, Mark, people look at your website and they go, oh my God, no, if he builds a website like that. But let me tell you, he built that website back in the day, prior to all the fancy JavaScript and, visual presentations that they do today. He actually did that himself when you didn't know what HTML was. But he's got a good reason, actually. Why has he not changed it since the day the internet was born? Because he's been pretty much on the internet since it was born. He created that web page and left it, done. And the reason for that, basically, is that everyone who knows him, and we're talking the majority of shops, we're talking about dealerships, we're talking about transmission shops. Where do you think they send their transmission? And then they give you a markup. They're sending them over here to Mark. It's Sun Valley Mercedes Transmissions. And I guarantee if you take it to your local shop, they're not going to do it. Matter of fact, your local shops don't even know what they're doing most of the time. You know what I mean. Now here's the transmission that Mark did for me. This is exactly what I expected. I wasn't necessarily thinking he would paint it. He did. You guys know I'm not really a fan of painting. It's just who I am. I like to keep everything the way it was. I would love it when somebody looks up underneath and goes, my God, this has been there since 1987. So that's the only difference is I may not have painted that. And I never told him to paint it or not to paint it. So, that's what he does. So now you guys know, if you don't want it painted, ask him. He won't paint it. All right, but that is my old transmission. This is after bringing it home. That's a new torque converter. And on that pan, you see those white things? That's so the pan doesn't get scratched. How many guys do that? You know, I went to that machinist here locally, and he just threw my stuff around like it was, you know, didn't mean anything to him. But Mark puts tape on there. You know, so when you do move it, and it's on carpet, but if you do move it, you're not going to scratch things up. Like the way you want to have it done, right? That's my transmission sitting right in front of my 560 SL. Everything looks great. I think you guys have to agree. Those little bumps that you see, that's how my transmission was sent to him. No one said sand it or do anything. And I'm glad he didn't. I want that to look exactly like that. I am very happy with that. So that's what I've been basically doing. I took a trip and maybe I'll go back. If not, you guys know what I think about Mercedes transmission. Now, we haven't installed it yet, so we don't know for sure. But I guarantee you that if I have a problem, I know who to call, right? They're not going to be like vanished all of a sudden. You know how that happens. Well, since I've been back, I've actually been doing a lot of different things. I had to work on my daughter's car, Amanda. Hello, Amanda. And then her boyfriend's car. Hey, Darren. No, not Darren. His name is Austin. I'm hoping he watched this. He's going, Darren, you know. But I found, you know, we were looking for a short that he was having to drive someplace, turn the key off, and come back, and his car don't start. So we isolated that problem, I believe, and we took care of it, and now his car is starting. So I've been doing that. But in addition to that, I've also been doing this. That's a plug. That's all that is. It's just a plug. But it's a 20 amp plug that I dropped in, because if you guys remember, on the hottest day in Arizona, what happened? Well, I was sandblasting at 119 degrees, I believe it was. And when I was actually sandblasting, my air compressor used to sit right over there. And my air compressor died on that day. Unfortunately, I need an air compressor. So I've been doing a lot of research, and you're going to find out that maybe that really doesn't matter. And I'm going to show that to you, because I think you guys, I mean, a lot of guys have these in their shop. So I think it might be a good idea if I kind of do a video on that and, you know, talk about who's really making these air compressors and, you know, what kind of research did I do to kind of figure that out, and who I spoke to and all that kind of stuff, and why I ended up with the one that I ended up with. So I'm going to be doing that in a future video. It's not here yet. It's on order. It's supposed to be here Thursday or Friday. And so I will make a video on that. I think it's going to be good. You guys should know that. But there's another reason why it was important for me to get this air compressor. And that happens to be the AC system. In my last video, you guys know that I had an issue with the AC rebuild. And there's a good reason why I want to have a rebuilt or remanufactured AC compressor. And that is, it's the integrity of my rebuild. It's a restoration. I'm trying to make it look and feel and everything the same. I'm not going to use R12. I'm going to use R134A. That was already been converted, actually. So, but just because it was converted, the car's been sitting here for about 15 years. So because of that, I need to take care of other things. This here, for example, is a box genuine Mercedes. You guys know how I am. I always buy genuine Mercedes when I can. But this is the AC line that goes from the radiator on top of the radiator and into the expansion valve. We're going to have this, of course. You know what that is. But unfortunately, you can't always get what you want. Sometimes you have to rely on aftermarket parts. This is a dryer. I believe I couldn't get a genuine Mercedes, or to me, it doesn't matter. It's a dryer. It's not very complicated, right? It has a sack inside of it that ends up holding, pulling moisture out of the air. I just don't think there's a lot of technology that goes into this. An expansion valve, again, Euro is the only place I could find it. This one I actually purchased, pronounce it right, Tony, a Meili. But it's a Bear product. That's right. It's a Bear product. But this is an AC switch. And again, we have another Euro. I'm not a fan of Euro for a lot of things, you guys. But some things are okay. And, these are things that I can change if they're, if it's not. But I believe I couldn't purchase this from Mercedes either. But I was able to purchase these directly. That's to hold the manifold on. This is the bolts for the AC pump to be mounted onto the block, and the washers. But we have some other things I needed to do. And you see that little spring? That is in the line, and some people actually pull these things out, like AC guys, because they don't know how to buy this or whatever it is. They're pulling these out. I see posts on the web, on the Benz World and such, where guys say, "I'll open it up, there's no spring in there." So either it got sucked in somehow, or somebody pulls that out because it's all clogged, and that's how they get past the expansion valve. Well, not actually past the expansion valve, but produce more pressure at least. And then the other thing I bought were some new Schrader valves and all that. So basically I got hoses and everything. The only thing that's not going to happen is I'm not going to replace the condenser or the evaporator. And there's one big hose, which we'll talk about when I get to actually doing the job, but there's one hose that I can't source. So I'm stuck with what I got. So what I am going to do is I am going to flush the condenser, the evaporator, and that hose. And we're going to get all the oil out, and it's going to be like a fresh system. And I'll show you how I go about it, or how I've learned. I've been trying to learn everything that I can about this. And I know that it's a nightmare like everything else. Right? It's a nightmare like everything else, and it can get very, very expensive. So all I'm going to do is do something that you guys can do at home, and with the help of a compressor, and I think we can put all this thing together. So that's what we're going to do. And also in a future video, that completion of all that actually will not take place until after the engine is running. There's no sense in getting all that together if the engine doesn't run. And who knows, I might not even start the engine. I might just put it in there and walk away. But let's hope that I'm not going to do that. Now, also, in another video, and it's coming up, this right here, this is my chain tensioner. This is genuine Mercedes. And if you follow me, I installed the chain tensioner that I removed. But I also said that that one was a Phoebe, and they're known to fail. And I said, I'm going to be changing this. So I am. This is going to be in a very near future, because I'm going to do this before I put it in. But I'm going to do it exactly how I did it with the Phoebe. So I think that's it for now, you guys. I'm going to close out this video, and I want to thank you guys for subscribing. Oh, wait a minute. There's one more issue. Over the past couple of weeks, my traveling and everything, I have been making comments. People have been asking me questions. I have like over 100 videos now, so I'm getting quite a few questions back and forth. And while I was replying to one of you, this is what I got. All of a sudden, YouTube decided that I was violating guidelines or something. I have no idea. I did a little research on it. I guess this is quite familiar to people. I didn't know that. This whole YouTube thing is fairly new to me. I can see what they're doing. They are using AI or whatever you want to call it. You know, these are old algorithms. But the way that I constructed my reply is what flagged this. And so then now I couldn't reply to any of you for 23 hours. And this isn't the first time that happened. So now you guys know that when you posted a question and I didn't at least, introduce myself, then you guys know this is what happened. So I've decided that I want to combat that. And what I've done is I decided, wait a minute, people are contributing to this channel. You guys you're clicking, there no longer is. I removed this, but there used to be a thanks button down below. And then you could choose how much you wanted to contribute to the channel. Well, Google keeps 30% of that. And I don't think you're not giving to Google, right? You don't want to give to Google, it's AdSense, whatever. You have to sign up for AdSense, so that's why I call it Google. Google's behind it all, so let's face it. But they keep 30%. And if you don't reach $100 at the end of the pay cycle, they withhold it. I don't think any of you wanted that to happen. So I have my PayPal still there if you guys want to contribute. I'm not breaking anybody's arms. But if you want to contribute, that's one way to do it for now. And PayPal's reasonable because that's exactly what they do. They take a person's gift or payment on something, or whatever it is, and then they're the middleman, so they're going to take a small cut. I think it's, like 8%, let's say that. It's kind of double what a credit card would be, but that's how it is, right? No matter where you go, that's how that is. So PayPal is one way to do it. You can use your credit card. I don't think you have to be part of PayPal to actually contribute to this channel. But there's another thing. Because I felt like I'm being censored by YouTube and their algorithms, and I feel it's important, when a person has a question, most likely I've already answered it in that video or in another video, but I should at least tell them, hey, in this video, there's your answer. But I thought, I need to do something different. I need to be able to communicate with people on my terms, So like everybody out there that have Patreon, I'm trying to work on a Patreon. I'm not saying you have to subscribe and pay money. No, I think that there should be some kind of an open, I don't know enough about it yet, but I just want to make sure that, I can post whatever I want, whatever it is, or I can just, we can have discussions, or, maybe that requires a Discord account. I don't know, but somehow I need to separate those things, and I don't want to turn comments off, but, I don't know exactly how I want to approach this. And I don't want to, I've turned off ads and all that kind of stuff, so if I reach 1,000 subscribers, because I promise you guys before, that's not what this is about, I'm not going to say I'll never turn it on, but right now I have it turned off. So now you guys know exactly where everything is. And, why I've been taking some time, I've been working here, working there, and I'm all around, and I'm also don't really want to do the things I got to do. Who wants to get underneath that dash and pull the dash out just so you can change an expansion valve, right? I don't really want to do that. I looked up underneath there, I have a sore back, right? I'm an old man. I don't really want to do it. But I know I got to do it. So, and I'd like to kind of do that really before I drop the engine in, only because I'd like to flush things and be able to stand right there in the engine bay and flush it. So I'd kind of like to do that. And again, I'm going to be installing this chain tensioner. There's no doubt about that. This is something that we're going to do. And you guys are going to learn a lot, I think, with this next video, even though it's identical to a previous video. But then you'll know why I do it the way that I do it and why others do it the same way. That's what it's all about. So there you are. All I got to do right now is say, thanks again for watching.